The Niners beat the Jets like a drum. It was about two teams with a lot going on, right? Like the Niners have a ton going on. You had Trent Williams contract, you had the Ayuk contract, Pearsall got shot. Like football issues, life issues. They've had a lot of stuff. Am I missing anything? I don't know. And then you have Christian McCaffrey not playing in this game, which it sounds like they had a couple days to figure out, right? We'll talk about that in a little bit. But the Jets, obviously, you got Hassan Reddick. I haven't seen him since he was wearing like one of those kimonos in Japan. I don't know what he's doing. You obviously have all the build up to Aaron Rodgers making his true debut, because the last one didn't last long. A ton going on, distractions in both camps, and one team was ready to play and one wasn't. It's that simple. I mean, again, it's just week one, but one team was absolutely ready to play and played a clean football game, like by the book the whole way. And the other team shot themselves in the foot and quite frankly, just didn't look like they had a good plan, and that's coaching. It really does come down to coaching. Like I do think there's a delta between these two teams. I mean, that's more obvious to me tonight than it was yesterday, but it's not this wide. And I didn't think the Jets had the right plan, and I didn't think they were ready to play. Where do we start? I think we start with San Francisco. And I think for a lot of people, myself included, coming into this game, getting that news as you're getting ready to look at the slate and maybe bet the Jets +4, you're like, yeah, this is a no-brainer. That defense is going to come ready to play, and we saw what San Francisco looked like without their Swiss Army knife back there. But the other guy that missed those games last year that they struggled in without Christian McCaffrey was Trent Williams, the guy they just inked to another deal, and the guy who had all the leverage, right? Because I think San Francisco knows that when he's not on the field, it's a totally different offense. And while Christian McCaffrey is that dude, so is Trent Williams. And I think if you had to decide between taking the field without one or the other, tonight kind of breaks the tie a little bit in an emergency situation. Not that you ever have to make that choice. It's just kind of how it came down last year, both of them being out for a couple games and them looking like shit. And then tonight, Trent's on the field, and they run the ball all over these guys. And, that's all you need. You need Trent, a guy named Trent who looks like Deebo, looks like he should be named Deebo, and then a guy named Deebo that plays running back, and then a guy named Deebo that plays wide receiver. If you have all that, you're going to be fine. If you got Brock Purdy, who made some really nice throws tonight, not under a lot of duress. I think in total, the Jets pressured him twice on 28 dropbacks. And it's not like they went to the quick game. There were all types of downs, and a lot of them weren't third downs, right? Because they only got to 13 third downs. But there were a lot of downs where the Jets just couldn't get off the field. So if you have all those weapons, and it started with Jordan Mason, right, who came out playing like a guy that wants to be traded for in fantasy, or picked up off the waiver wire for a couple weeks. I mean, like this guy's name's going to be super hot going into next week because the Christian McCaffrey injury, to me, seems like something that's a little bit more than day-to-day. It seems like they've underreported it. And in fact, Jordan Mason, who I'm super happy for, this guy balled out, ran hard as hell, took advantage of his opportunity. It's a league of opportunities. When you get an opportunity as an undrafted guy, you got to take it. He took the opportunity. After the game, they asked him about when he knew he was going to be the starter. He said, shit, Friday. Like he's just a kid. Like he doesn't know what he's saying necessarily, or the implications of saying that. And people are going to take that and run with it. I'm going to be John Lynch's lawyer here. And I'm going to say, well, that could mean that Christian was going to have an abbreviated role, take less carries. We were going to spell him. And, Jordan was going to run out of tunnel. You could say that. But, as I always say, don't piss on my leg and tell me it's rain. I think they knew coming into this game they might be without him. They had the time to prepare for that possibility. I'm not making an accusation. This is already out there. I'm not snitching. Blame Lisa Salters. It did make my ears perk up, and it made me think they had a couple days to get ready for this thing. And this guy ran like a guy who knew he was going to carry the load for the team, and he did. I mean, he was breaking tackles. He was bouncing off people. Their run game is a work of art. They really are. The scheme, it's a lot like Detroit. When we talk about Detroit coming off that game last night, Detroit's like a mini San Francisco, where they have the offensive line coached by Hank Fraley, one of the best in the league, doing what he does. 5 deep, guys, elephants on parade. They move on a string. And in the run game, it's a real weapon for them. It's the same thing for San Francisco, right? They don't just have the offensive line in Detroit. They don't just have the offensive line in San Francisco. And by the way, that Pooney guy, the right guard, I don't know if it's Puny or Pooney. I'll learn how to pronounce the name because the guy's going to be playing a lot of good ball for them, it looks like. I mean, he was singled out, moving bodies, might be the steal of the draft for them. They have the offensive lineman, but they also have a dynamic play designer who walks into a game without Christian McCaffrey and says, okay, we're going to give it to this Jordan Mason kid, and we're going to give Deebo Samuel the ball like a running back, which we've seen before. But I also know if you're Deebo Samuel, and only the Niners know how serious the Christian McCaffrey injury is, you got to be ready. And I know it's not convenient considering the designation, am I a running back? Am I a wide receiver? Is it fair that I have to do everything? The whole more you can do thing. Be careful showing people what you can do well because they'll make you do it. Because now, it doesn't matter. Like, we don't have Christian McCaffrey. We'll put Deebo back in the backfield and we'll hand him the ball. It's not going to be a gadget thing. He's going to play running back. He's going to play wide receiver. And if you're the San Francisco 49ers and Christian misses some games this year, which he's already missed one.
And he might miss 2.
Might miss 2.
They're saying he's doubtful for next week's game.
And every year I look at this guy and I say, it's incredible that he carries the load he carries year after year at that position. And they don't take their foot off the gas pedal. They don't spell him. He's a workhorse. And he's been able to last this long. But every year I'm like, what happens if, And I think the answer is you get something out of this Mason kid and you can put Deebo in the backfield. And if it is truly a thing where you're like, hey, the window's wide open, we have to win a Super Bowl, which it is in San Francisco, you're burning the ships, man. It's all hands on deck. Pardon the nautical metaphors here, but it is all hands on deck, and you are burning the ships. And Deebo, if you got to take 20 carries out of the backfield one week, that's what it's going to, that's what it's going to demand. And I think he's the type of guy that's willing to take those hits and that beating. Jordan Mason after the game was like, I told Christian, I didn't know these games were this long, man. Well, they are this long when you're in 4-minute mode the whole damn game because they can't stop the run. And for a guy like Deebo, he might have to play some running back and some receiver this year. And it's good to see that Kyle Shanahan, no surprise, still knows how to use him back there. I mean, putting him back there is such a nightmare for somebody who's got him man-to-man out of the backfield. Every alignment's different, I imagine, for a guy in the secondary, but I can only speak to an edge guy's perspective. When you have to take a back out of the backfield, one of the hardest things for somebody on ball or off ball is an option or an angle route, and I saw Quincy Williams, who, by the way, played his ass off, having to deal with Deebo. They bump him over and he's out wide in the backfield. And, you got Deebo coming right at you. You can't get out leveraged. And if he comes back on the angle route, you also can't get beat inside because you're in trouble in that situation. One of the few plays they made in the passing game that was legit was that PBU. But later in the game, Deebo Samuel out of the backfield, and Mosley, who's a hell of a player, but that's an unfair, thing to ask of him to cover him man-to-man. The down goes more than 3-4 seconds, it's over. And there were so many plays like that tonight. And Brock Purdy deserves credit, buying time, putting touch on the ball down the red zone, getting it to Ayuk. Yeah, I know that Ayuk was in the red zone ESPN fantasy app 8 times. You tell me that Ayuk's in the red zone. He didn't get the ball once in the end zone. I mean, he dropped the ball in the corner of the end zone. He looked rusty as hell. And if you're the Jets, you're lucky they weren't better in the red zone because this thing could have got ugly. But Ayuk, Yeah, looked a little rusty. And another thing is, if you're Ricky Pearsall Jr., you're sitting there on the sideline and Ayuk's not having the best game, and you're saying, I might see a little daylight. I know they just paid him, but I'd like to be out here getting some of these touches. You don't know what this offense is going to look like at full strength. Boy, oh boy. They don't look like they had everything they had going on. You know what I mean? They came to play. And, on defense, Sorensen, through 1 week, looks like a competent dude, man. He played in the league a long time. Joe Buck gave us his bio, and he's like, he kind of looks like the guy from Incubus. And, everybody at home's like, what the fuck does he look like? And a few others. But he also did a lot pre-snap to play chess with Rodgers and had Rodgers checking plays and that sort of thing. Safety come down late, can, the whole thing. And that little chess match got interesting as the game went on. And I thought he held his own as a play caller. Of course, he's calling plays against Nathaniel Hackett. And I think when a lot of people put the Jets in the Super Bowl this year, something I learned last year when I put them in the Super Bowl was not only they had a durability concern at quarterback because the guy understandably is almost 40 years old, but their offensive coordinator is a guy I don't have a lot of, hey, this guy's called plays without Aaron Rodgers. Like, it is kind of just Aaron Rodgers' offense mixed with, Nathaniel Hackett's run designs.
And I can tell you from being a Broncos fan, you're not going to get a lot from
Yeah.
Nathaniel Hackett not being paired with Aaron
Yeah,
Rodgers.
what good is he if Rodgers is hurt? And I realized that last year, and it kind of made me wonder coming in this year, what's the offense really look like? Is it automatically just going to work? And maybe it does. And Breece Hall, who did not have his best game, is going to look like a weapon. And Garrett Wilson, who looked for, spurts in this game, unguardable. And of course, Belichick's on the Manning cast bitching about why aren't they doubling him? He would have took him away, but maybe it all comes together at some point because the quarterback looks damn good. One more thing, the Floyd thing defensively for San Francisco, that's an upgrade. We said that coming in. Chase Young, there was a lot of fan excitement about that move. There was a lot of buzz around that move. And I think Chase is a nice player, but Leonard Floyd is one of these guys that doesn't get the A-list rusher recognition. But after his stint in Chicago, the last 4 years, he's averaged, 9+ sacks a year. He's put together a really nice career and bounced around, but he's going to make this group better. You saw him and Bosa get home. And Tyron Smith, by the way, had a tough game, trying to hold up, and another newcomer for San Francisco, Devondre Campbell. He's not what the other guy is, but Fred Warner is a demon. And you can try to pop little screens away from him. You can hit the perimeter away from him. You can do whatever you want to do. He's going to be around the ball. He's a heat-seeking missile. The peanut punch on Breece was a thing of beauty. He's just a perfect football player. He was made in a lab to play football. He's like T1000 or something.
That's the best comparison you can give him. 6'3", 230, just ridiculous.
T1000 kind of looks like Brock Purdy, by the way, tonight, I realized. But also T1000, he was always, it was like Jason, he was liquid metal. You couldn't fucking kill him. He was always going to be there. He was chasing the car with John Connor in it. Remember? And he could do things like turn into the woman and impale the husband with his arm. That's what Fred Warner can do. He's unbelievable. It's like, what do we need? We need a Schwarzenegger to beat Fred Warner. And T2000 wasn't walking through the door tonight. Was that what Schwarzenegger was? T2000? T800. No, he was the T800 Model 101. Yeah. So you need a T800 Model 101. Listen, a lot to like if you're a Niners fan. A lot to like if you are a Jets fan. And it's so interesting to me that a year ago, you come out, you have all this hope. You have the same hope you had this year, but maybe more because it was new. And Rodgers blows his Achilles out. You find a way to win the game. You win the game. You run the ball all over the Bills. You have a dramatic punt return. The season's lost, but you won the game. And tonight, the defense didn't really show up in the front, and there were multiple drives where you're missing guys. You were missing Mosley for a drive right out of the half, where you really needed to stop. You couldn't go down. A field goal would have been fine. 19-7 would have been fine, but 23-7 was not fine. They had the ball for 7 minutes, something like that. It was bad. 7.5 minutes, 11 plays, 70 yards. Mosley's off the field because he's got a wrist thing. He's flying around like a missile. And then there was one possession where you don't have Sauce Gardner. And the circumstance around not having Sauce Gardner, I think he got a stinger. I think he re-entered the game. And about the time we're all finding out that Sauce Gardner isn't on the field, you find out that he's not on the field, and it's not because of an injury. And we're all like, what the fuck's going on here? And they're panning to him. And I'm not a lip reader. And so don't hold me to this. And I don't want to start a rumor or something. But like just me, Joe fan, okay? I'm going to put my hands up. This is me acknowledging that I'm no better than anybody listening on this topic, throwing shit at the wall. But I thought he said like they didn't know I was injured, or I thought he was saying they got me fucked up. It looked like he was frustrated with somebody on the sideline. And I kind of wonder if maybe, they didn't like the way he looked on the last drive and he got into it with a coach or something. Totally speculative, because they kind of glossed over that thing. And they were like, Sauce isn't out here. It's not an injury. Now, by the time you see this video, you might know something I don't. So feel free to share a theory for what happened there. But 2 drives, you're missing some of your best players.
You talk about his impact. 0 receptions allowed on 2 targets as the nearest defender over 25 coverage snaps. And you saw it on that punch where IU caught the slant and he just came over the top and punched the ball right out.
Yeah, he's great, man. To miss him and miss Mosley for a drive when you really need him, like the Niners were scoring at will, not having Huff anymore, not having John Franklin Myers, not having, Hassan Reddick, who, by the way, that's a huge game for his leverage play, right? Like they didn't sniff the quarterback, If I'm him, you're like, what do you have except for me? Give me whatever I want, right or wrong, right? It's kind of a sick pleasure you get if you're Hassan Reddick watching that. I hope you don't get any pleasure, but you haven't even joined the team yet, so why would you be rooting for him, right? Maybe this game, interestingly, is defined by the fact that, like, there's too much going on defense, and they actually lose this damn game, and they're a better team this year, and they have Aaron Rodgers. So defense wins season openers. Is what you know what I mean? You didn't have the offense last year. You found a way to beat the Bills, and they ran into a buzzsaw tonight. But I will say, if you're a Jets fan, if you had walked into the room and somebody was obscuring the score of the game and you didn't have any context for what's going on, drive 3. If you're a Jets fan, just play drive 3 before you go to sleep tonight. Try to have good dreams. Drive 3. Now, it got off to a shaky start, and you're coming off Lazard dropping a ball, Huff fumbling the football, which actually started with Tyron Smith getting beat because the play was out of phase, and I think Huff was just scrambling. It's not an excuse. This drive was out of nowhere. It was like, wow. And it started with him pinning the ball between Garrett's chest and Lenore's arm. It was like a dot, and then you had him manipulating somebody with his eyes, and you're like, they pan to Rodgers, and he's got this look on his face. For 5 minutes of this game, he was like, I know why I came here. And man, Garrett Wilson's fun. I mean, they just gave the ball to Wilson. And to Belichick's chagrin, they're just they keep feeding him the ball. And for a minute there, they panned to Rodgers, and his face was like, wow, this is fun. That drive was fun. They got the screen game going. They look good.
4 for 46 for Wilson on that drive. 4 catches,
4 for
46 yards.
46. They even sent him in like an orbit motion kind of deal. Got him the ball. It was like, how many different ways can you get this guy the ball? And by the way, bring back loose sleeves. That look, that's my most beautiful scene in football, was seeing Sauce Gardner and Garrett Wilson in those jerseys with the sleeves. I mean, that looked incredible. The loose sleeves are cool. Not for nothing. But, the whole thing is that one drive is your potential. That's a damn good defense you did that against on one drive, and it's because you got a guy who can still throw the football. I mean, throwing the football, the ball to Lazard, the vintage drive again later in the game, these drives are surrounded by shit. That first drive, the first drive I referenced, drive 3, 12 plays, they ran 11 plays otherwise in the first half. They had more plays on that drive than they had in the first half combined. So they couldn't get the run game going. I don't know what Nathaniel Hackett's doing trying to run zone. Let's try wide zone. Let's try getting the ball in the perimeter against this defense. Bunch of werewolves, dude. It's a werewolf party. And you're trying to run away from these guys. And I know I saw Green Bay do it in the playoffs and hit some explosives on the edge, but maybe keep that one in the back pocket and leave that to the Packers or some other team that's suited to do it, and realize that penetration kills zone. And, come out and not go gap scheme, it felt like a bad plan. And you had the vintage drive where he drew somebody off sides and he hit a free play for a touchdown. Ironically, his first touchdown as a Jet. You also had the drive 3 that I talked about, but it was surrounded by absolute shit. And more than anything, if you are the Jets and you expect to go places, you got to stop the run. If you expect to compete in the AFC East, you got to stop the run. I don't know if you have League Pass. I don't know if you know who Scott Hansen is. But, if you watch the games yesterday, the Patriots are willing to be like, hey, here's our game plan. This is what we're going to do for the next 60 minutes. And your guys are going to have to tackle on the second level. We're going to have 3 tight ends in the front. We're going to commit to running the football. The Dolphins can run the football at will. The Bills look like a team that can run the football again this year. So if you want to win the East, if you want to compete for the East, you got to be able to stop the run. And I know it's not fair to this defense that they're on the field so damn long, or it's not fair to this front and these tackles who I got to look at the all-22 to see who had a poor game, that they're missing JFM, or that Hassan Reddick hasn't showed up for work and can't get him off the field on third down. So every time how many times can you stop the run in a game against that outfit? I know it's not easy, and they've been doing it for 3 years with utter bullshit on the other end of the football. No complimentary football. So much to they were 12th in the league in yards per carry last year. I want to show you something, Reed. I don't think it's a dirty little secret, but it's not for nothing. In 2023, let's look at the defense here. I'm going to read you off some of the rushing totals that they gave up. And, everybody's like, hey, they're a great defense. We kind of put them in the playoffs because of this defense with Rodgers under center. Okay. Rushing yardage given up 97, 134, 157, 204, 139. They gave up 203 to the Chiefs. They gave up 148 to the Raiders. They gave up 130 to the Bills. They gave up 167 to the Dolphins, 102 to the Commanders, 127 to the Browns. That's a dirty little secret for you, Reed. And I feel bad for them because in a lot of these situations, it's just 4-minute mode. I have been there. I played for the St. Louis Rams. It reminds me a lot of what the Jets have gone through. We had a great front, and there were games where it was like, we're not going to have a lead. And it's going to hurt our stats when it comes to rushing the passer, but it's going to hurt our feelings some of these nights when you're giving up 4-7 on the ground, a pop to the San Francisco 49ers. They were 12th in the league in yards per attempt because of games like, the Cowboys game where they give up 150 yards, but it's 30, 40 carries. It's 3 yards a pop. What do you want me to say to a unit like that? But tonight they could have been better. And it just didn't come together for them. So if they want to have a good year, they got to stop the run. Now, the next 4 weeks, as Jake Asman from Mad Dog Radio pointed out, next 4 weeks, Levis, Nix, Brissett, Darnold. That doesn't matter, as he alluded to, because he said you got to stop the run. That doesn't matter. This is a tweet. That doesn't matter if you can't stop the run. I don't care who's at quarterback. So we'll see if they can turn this thing around, but not a good start for the Jets. So much hype. If you learn anything this week 1, it's almost like you don't want hype. The Bears, a lot of hype around the quarterback. Didn't play that well. The Jets, a lot of hype around everything they did. Didn't play that well. The Atlanta Falcons, a lot of hype around everything they did. Didn't play that well. So you got to show up. They didn't show up. And I know it's week 1, but Robert Saleh's coaching for his job. He's at some point this year, if they don't get off to a better start over the next couple weeks, there's going to be people, right or wrong, asking questions about Robert Saleh, especially because he's a defensive coach, and he's got to find a way to get these guys to stop the run.
He's 18-34 as the Jets head coach. The 4th worst winning percentage among the 18 full-time coaches in the franchise's history.
And listen, not for nothing, the guy who gave him his start, not his start, but the job that catapulted him into this position, knows him very well. And that's Kyle Shanahan. So you come into this game from a standpoint of, hey, this organization, San Francisco, they know what they're doing. Do I think if McCaffrey's hurt all year, they're a shoo-in to win the West? I don't know about that. But tonight, they look like one of the best football teams, if not the best football team in the damn league. We saw the Cowboys look strong, but Cleveland is hapless. We saw the Eagles look really good the other night. We saw Houston look great. But this team is right up there with any of them if they play like that. And so kudos to Kyle Shanahan for getting them ready to play and for knowing how to call the audible on the game plan when McCaffrey's not in there.
And that's even with the 49ers, Brandon Ayuk, 2 catches on 5 targets. He had the drop in the end zone on the layout, had that ball stripped from him. So there's definitely improvements.
Though there's ways to improve for this team.
Exactly.
So, I mean, hey, listen, nothing but respect and admiration for that organization and the way they're able to get their players ready to play, but also the players they have on that roster. Because like I said last year when they played that Thanksgiving game and beat the living shit out of the Seahawks, after the game they're all sharing the turkey. Most teams got 3-4 guys on the turkey. They got like 10 dudes on one turkey. There's people coming into the picture. You're like, oh, there's Bosa, there's Warner, there's Deebo. They have so many blue chip players. So if you're sitting here listening to this thinking, hey, I didn't talk enough about Purdy or this guy or that guy, it's not what it's about. This is a tip of the cap to the organization for being so damn good and so prepared.